Liberals intend to table a bill that would ban the use of social media platforms by children under the age of 16. Liberal House Leader Ian Rankin said that would make Nova Scotia the first province to set an age restriction for social media access. I'm joined now by Jenna Post with the Nova Scotia chapter of the group Unplugged Canada. So why do you think a ban like this one is necessary?
Well, we have a growing body of global research really pointing to that same conclusion that early and overexposure to social media is causing rates of anxiety, depression, loneliness, and self-harm at unprecedented rates among youth. So, we're seeing a lot more countries moving in this direction, and it's proof that this technology is, while it can be engaging and there can be some community around it, the harms it's causing at scale for youth is just something we need to take a stand on and start protecting our kids.
Well, how would it be enforced and who would be responsible for doing that?
I think there's some of that still to be worked through. I don't really want to speak to it and let that kind of leave that to the experts. But if you look at how Australia and other areas are looking at it, they are looking to have some kind of age verification likely to happen. So whether that's being done on the operating system, like Apple and Google are actually working on some technologies to have parents potentially give the age range of their child, so then it then determines on any application what the child will be allowed to use and access based on the age restrictions. And then there's other workflows that we have in our lives today, whether we're going to open up a bank account online, whether we're going to buy alcohol or cannabis online. You have to provide some kind of government ID and in many times some kind of selfie verification to prove who you are and how old you are. And so, we have some precedent set already on how to access things that are inappropriate for children online. And I think tools like that are being considered to be used.
Some may wonder why parents wouldn't be the ones to determine the right age for their kids to use social media.
I mean, I think that is definitely a conversation that's happening among parents. And I think just what we've seen, when smoking started to have age restrictions, when driving has age restrictions, I'm sure there was, pockets of the population that felt that it could have been more of a decision made within a family. But again, the amount of harm that's being caused at scale globally across the world, we just can't ignore the facts and the research and the evidence we have on this. And so this is just now we're getting enough information to say it's time to start set some age limitations on these platforms that are having widespread impact on our healthcare systems and our productivity in Canada, and really just the mental health and well-being of our children and the next generations. This generation here that we have, Gen Z, is the first one that is less healthy than the generation before them. And that's the first time that that's happened.
Any concerns about overstepping parental rights?
I mean, I think that there's always going to be, some conversation around that. But again, I see this more, and many people see it as really giving parents, especially most folks are hesitant to give their kids access this early and under that age 16, that it really levels the playing field for families. It actually supports them. And to me, I feel like it actually just takes away the power of Silicon Valley and these big tech companies controlling our kids. I see it more as supporting families and enabling that, because these tech companies are driven by revenue. Their kids are not on these platforms. And the only way to make them change and make these places safer and to make it so that kids are safe is to have this kind of legislation in place.
Now, if this did require collection of personal information, could there be cybersecurity or privacy concerns?
I mean, again, I would leave this up to the folks who are building those products, but there is, again, third-party applications that do this age verification. Many times they don't save that data. They only save the end result as to whether you have been confirmed as your identity or your age or not. So, there's a lot of precedent set that there is less concerns about that because this data is not being saved. And this is something that all of these groups around the world that are working with governments like Australia are taking a look at that and making sure that what does get implemented does have, considerations around data privacy and security.
Now, have you had any indication whether this idea has support from the governing Tories?
I haven't spoke specifically with them. I've reached out to some of my, contacts and local MLAs myself. I feel like, if you look at the precedent of what Nova Scotia has been in the past as far as a leader in Canada, whether it was the, restriction of smoking in bars and restaurants or smoking in your car with your kids, Nova Scotia has led the way many times when it comes to these kind of topics, that when it comes to safety in kids and health. So I have confidence that the government of Nova Scotia will take a look at this and want to move this forward, that this is something that Nova Scotia can be a leader on and continue to show that across the country.
Before I let you go, a lot of kids are pretty tech savvy. Any worries they might just find a way around a ban?
I mean, kids these days as well, even with age restrictions on alcohol and other, age restricted addictive pieces, they can find a way. But when you set these kind of limits, it sets a precedent that this is not appropriate for this age group and under, and it creates those barriers that makes it harder to do. I think you'll never close every gap in any of these situations, but it really just starts to set a precedence in society, changes the norms, and it starts to shift the adoption of it when it just has so many more barriers to get to it.
All right. Well, Jenna Post, thanks so much for your time. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.